All right, welcome to another edition of the Sports Guys. We have a very special one for you this week, and we are going to be talking about college football, which has been absolutely epic this year from beginning to end. By far the best season I've ever seen, culminating with this great 12-team bracket that we're going to break down today. We're going to break down all of the individual teams, all of the brackets, and then our special guests, Luke Nelson and Rob and I, are going to go on the record. We're going to make our prediction who's going to make it to the final and who's going to win the whole thing. How you doing, Luke?
Like as Rob said earlier, if I was any better, I'd be a Cyclone fan, which I am. So life's good. Up here in Kansas City, it's starting to get a little bit chilly. It's hoodie weather, so no complaints though.
I was thinking when you came on the podcast 2 months ago that we were going to see the Iowa State team in that bracket somewhere, even if they're 11 or 12. And then you're sitting over there on a 13-1 record in Kansas City with the Chiefs. And life's good.
Our basketball team is ranked third in the country too, so that's good. It's painful to see Arizona State in that 4 slot, knowing that maybe we could have been there potentially, or at least being on this bracket would have been cool to see. So,
that's true.
No, life's good.
Robbie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I loved this college football season. I'm really excited about Christmas coming. I was a little depressed today when I realized we were going to talk about the bracket, and I went through my college sweatshirts, and all my teams are bad. So this is the most dominant team that I support in college, NC State. They're going to a bowl game. So that was a little depressing. But other than that, what a season. What an amazing season.
I went ahead and wore my Virginia and just took the L. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
That's how you got to do it. Hey, I wanted to ask you, Luke. So Arizona State gets picked last in the conference at the beginning of the year. They're essentially been told that they were going to be complete trash. They're going to be 1-11, maybe win one conference game, and they storm out and win the conference and go to the playoff. Like, is this tremendous or what? Can you believe this team?
Yeah, it's actually been a lot of fun to watch them too. They play really physical brand of football. They don't make a lot of mistakes. And their coach, Kenny Dillingham, he's just a lot of fun to listen to. I don't know if you guys have heard in the press conference, but a lot of energy. You could tell he's obviously an Arizona State guy.
Isn't he like 32 or something crazy?
Yeah, he's super young. Yeah, he's like I think he's like 32 or 33. And
34.
It was actually like when they were playing Iowa State in the Big 12 championship, all this lead up to it, like I was watching a lot of his pressers, and I'm like, how could you not be impressed with this guy? I mean, it's just, and I think the thing too that preseason polls would tell us is, Utah was picked first by everybody,
right?
And look where they ended up. And so
Kansas was supposed to be good.
Yeah, Penn State was supposed to be good.
Missouri was supposed to be good.
Yeah, right. There's all these. Preseason polls are great, but at the end of the day, is like, especially in this day and age, right, with the portal.
Yeah, you can't predict
so many teams and guys. Yeah, exactly. You cannot predict it. So, as a one rep of the Big 12, I'm really rooting for Arizona State.
Well, I got to tell you, 8 weeks ago when you were on the show, Luke, we broke down the major 4 conferences, and we broke down the Big 12. And we brought you on specifically because you know that conference inside and out. Arizona State was sitting in 6th at that time. And we had already written them off, and we thought it was coming down to Iowa State, K-State, maybe Utah. Those are the teams that we had kind of penciled in for the playoff. So 8 weeks later, that's how short it was.
It was it was interesting because I think everybody wrote them off, and they had a game in Manhattan versus K-State, and they just beat the brakes off. And all of a sudden, I think everybody was like, whoa, okay, now we got to kind of start taking these guys a little bit more seriously. And then you start hearing about Scatteraboo. Like, I think those of us that have watched the Big 12 games, like, oh my gosh, this guy is amazing. But then now they start getting some national attention. And when I think that was kind of when not a lot of people going to Manhattan and just manhandle them like they did. So I think that was when people started. People started kind of, they got put on notice. So, yeah.
So other than them, any other surprises when you look at this bracket that's behind you right now? What were the biggest surprise teams for you other than Arizona State?
Yeah, I think to me, look, I think there's two clear-cut things here. Obviously, SMU, I think if there's one team in here that I don't want to say don't belong, but you're just not used to seeing, I think they definitely belong. Let me get that clear. They belong, but definitely not used to seeing SMU up, with this kind of tier of team here. So, and I'm actually, side note, I'm happy that they got in over Alabama. I thought they were more deserving than an Alabama team, and I was really afraid that the committee was just going to be like, no, look, just on name recognition alone, we're going to put them in there. So
well, and it's interesting you say that, because last week Rob and I had a huge debate over that. Do you go with deserving, or you go with strength of schedule, power conference, all that? And we have a graphic at the end of the program tonight we'll show about how if they went purely by the other measure, Alabama would have gotten in over SMU. So personally, I'm glad they did too. But if they went purely by power ranking, strength of schedule, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I think another team in here that just surprising to me, and I think they deserve it, is Indiana. Right? Indiana showed all year in the second best conference in the country that they belonged. Right? They lost one game to an incredible Ohio State team, which everybody always gets beat by Ohio State, and unfortunately for them, that really wasn't even a game. But I do think I'm super pumped about that Indiana matchup, right? Notre Dame and Indiana. I think that's a really cool thing that we got going on. So,
yeah.
But
good for recruiting.
Oh yeah, no, big time, right? That's exactly right. So I think to me the two surprise teams on here are definitely those two. But again, I think that they're both very much deserving. I think that they're teams that actually can do some damage too, quite frankly. They're not just to put it in a basketball analogy, a 16 seed that just got into the big dance and just going to get steamrolled. I don't think that's going to happen.
Absolutely. Rob, what were your biggest?
I totally agree with those two. Those two jumped out at me, but I just thought of two more that really, if you think about their path, it's pretty surprising that they got in. I would say Clemson getting annihilated in week 1 and not having the absolute best,
well, and losing to Syracuse. And,
they
came in with 3 losses.
So Clemson, and then the other one was Notre Dame losing to the pitiful team,
Northern Illinois.
Illinois. No offense against them, but just not somebody you'd consider capable of knocking off Notre Dame and then coming back. So it's really the overcoming and getting back into the race after sort of stumbling at the beginning line. Those surprised me that they were able to come all the way back, and not that they aren't deserving or good. It's just they had such bad beginning that it was kind of hard to, and Clemson had another loss that was hard to explain. So, but those two surprised me almost as much as Indiana and SMU.
I think for me, you guys have named them all, but I think to me the one that I didn't see coming the most was Arizona State, because we had written them off so late in the season. It really was, even up to 6 weeks ago, we kind of had written them off and said they were going to finish about 4th or 5th in the conference. So in terms of kind of mid-season surprise, they would be the biggest for me. But in terms of the entire season, it was Indiana. I think Indiana, no one saw that coming. Yeah. They were 2-9 last year in the Big Ten. They bring in a new coach. He brings essentially the whole team with him from JMU to compete in the Big Ten, and goes 11-1. I mean, that is, to me, that's the story of the year, in my opinion.
They were housing teams. It's not like they were just skating by week after week. They were a housing team. So anybody that thinks that they don't deserve to be there is they're up.
I think all these teams deserve to be there.
Yeah. But I think the committee got it right.
The deserve versus the talent. I think Alabama is better than several of these teams, but they don't deserve to be there.
Right.
If that makes any sense. They had some losses that you can't have if you want to make this playoff. But if you think about it, did you guys think at any point, as the clock ticked down to 0, as Notre Dame loses to Northern Illinois, that they could get back into the playoff?
No.
That was the most devastating loss I've seen since Michigan lost to App State. I mean, it was just.
I felt they still had a path. I felt they still had a path because they.
I thought they were done for.
I think just because name recognition alone, quite frankly, is just they're Notre Dame, right?
Yeah.
And
I know, but they beat Navy and Army, and they're not.
They killed those guys, so that also probably helps, right? Yeah.
I would say the second most surprising team on this chart for me is Boise State. They come out of the Mountain West. They win the Mountain West convincingly. They have this really special player who comes in second in the Heisman voting, and they get a bye in the first round of the playoff. I never saw that coming. I saw them coming in maybe the 12th seed or something like that. I didn't understand that the playoff system could work that way, where a Mountain West champion could get a bye. I didn't realize that at the beginning of the year. So that was very, very surprising to me. And then the third biggest story for me, surprising-wise, was Alabama. If you had told me beginning of the year, University of Alabama with all 5-star recruits with Kellen DeBoer at the helm could not make a 12-team field, I wouldn't have believed you. So
what do you guys think about, their AD came out and said, well, we're just going to have to play an easier non-con next year because obviously they're going by win totals. So let me read you their non-conference schedule. Western Kentucky, South Florida, Wisconsin, and Mercer. Doesn't get much easier than that, in my opinion.
That's true.
Right? So it's not the fact that their non-con hurt them. It's the fact they just did not perform in their internal conference.
In the SEC, which is understandable.
Which is understandable.
Yeah.
But you got to perform in your conference. I don't care if you're, I don't care who you are. If you're JMU, if you're, anybody, you got to win those conference games. So,
but the truth is that somebody's going to get left out of the SEC who's a top dog and probably belongs in, but they're going to get left out because they couldn't beat the top guys. So they're not the top. So is it fair? I mean, kind of not, but that's just how it is. You're not going to send 7 teams from the SEC.
Well, they were already going to have to put in a three-loss team in Clemson because they won their title. They won the ACC. So I think they just didn't want to put a second 3-loss team in, and that was our problem. So what Nick Saban is saying is what Luke is saying, and Nick Saban actually foretold this a couple of weeks ago. He said, we're now going to be forced to play all patsies except for the SEC because he's like, we've got to guarantee ourselves that we're going to have nothing but wins other than the SEC, which is really sad. Then you're not going to get LSU, USC. You're not going to get a lot of those early matchups.
Right. And that's bad for college football, right?
I think the lesson is not don't play anyone good. It's if you're going to play someone good, line it up early so you can come back.
That's a good point.
All these other teams did. Notre Dame and Tennessee had some shaky games, and they got a little better. And who was hotter at the end of the season than Arizona State? You know. So I mean,
yeah, absolutely. No, I think that it's really unfortunate that the teams are going to start stacking their schedules like that. I agree with you, Luke. I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
I think if they play really good teams early, it'll be fine. Even when you drop 1 or 2. But
I'm afraid that
lose 3.
I'm afraid they're going to get rid of some of these rivalry games. For us locally here, it's the Iowa State-Iowa game. If all of a sudden one of us decides that we're not going to play each other because we want to, not run the risk of losing a game, that's terrible. It's just bad for football, and we're not the only state that has that. So
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, and the other thing is I'm queasy about 3-loss teams getting in. I really wish there was 0 3-loss teams. Obviously Clemson earned it, and then the second
I'm okay
thing
if they earned it. I'm okay if they won their conference, then you're in.
The second thing is I want it to be really rare where a team gets in that doesn't go to their conference final. I know in the SEC that's not possible. There's so many good teams, but for the most part, I want to see you at least get to the conference final, even if you lose it before you get into the playoff.
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea too.
Because then you make the conference finals important. So
right, yeah, those games need to mean something, right? I mean, for Oregon and Penn State, they were both already in, and so essentially they were playing for the bye, right? So in that championship game. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, Tom. I think that we still need to make those championship games really, really mean something. The Bulls are already losing luster, but the championship games and these games for sure, we got to make sure that they keep their steam.
That's right. Absolutely.
I heard an interesting idea of turning all the remaining bowl games into an NIT type football tournament, which would be pretty fun. I think that would be a good idea.
It'd be better than what we have right now because the Tostitos Bowl and all these kind of bowls we have, nobody cares about any of them.
Yeah,
That's right.
So,
yeah.
But if there were some kind of step towards winning an NIT type football tournament where maybe even if you win it, you get an automatic bid the next year. I don't know. Some kind of reward. Maybe not that, but
you get the number 12 seed.
How long would that take? Would that just take forever? I mean, I don't even know how many teams there are that get into bowls outside of this.
What I would do is maybe do another 12-team bracket and just make it the NIT. I like that.
Yeah,
you can't do too big.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Alabama would probably win it, or one of those types of teams.
Yeah,
but we would see some cool matchups for sure, and it'd probably mean something, right?
I'm excited about Alabama, Michigan in the bowl game. That looks good.
Yeah, that'll be a fun game.
I mean, granted, half the guys have probably transferred out, but
there's a couple of good matchups. I think to me is like, as fans, we still have to watch the bowl games, right? And we still have to enjoy them. Otherwise, it's just I think it's easy for us to just say, oh, these games don't matter anymore because star player is transferring. Well, guess what? There's 21 other starters that are starting, right? That means something. So I get if Cam Ward doesn't play, Miami definitely is not on the level, but still should mean something. So I just don't want college football to be like, okay, regular season's over, now the bowls don't mean anything anymore. And it's kind of.
I will say though that's
already happened. I mean, you have one team that had to pull out of a bowl because they had 30 guys transfer.
Right. Maybe they need to move the portal date back, right?
Oh, there's no doubt.
Yeah,
I think that's almost like 100%. Everyone agrees with that now. It's not even being debated. It's just
a disaster. It's absolutely a disaster.
Right.
Yeah.
You now have
one thing I was saying is the scheduling is very important here because there's going to be a lot of bowl games happening when we're wrapping presents. There's not a lot going on. I think they'll get some decent viewership.
Yeah.
Especially some of the good matchups. Those are going to get some eyeballs. So
right.
But going back to the transfer portal window, the reason it has to be moved back, there's so many reasons, but the biggest one is you have a guy like Quinn Ewers right now who's being rumored to go somewhere else next year. His mind is not fully focused on what it should be on, which is on Clemson and on the college football playoff. What he's thinking about is $4 million payday at the next stop. So that's a huge problem. And then now you've got Arch Manning being rumored to UNC. He's on that same roster. He should be focused on the bowl game. So I really don't like it.
Coach a player who's leaving. I don't even know.
There's guys that are doing that. There's guys that are saying, hey, I'm transferring. However, I'm going to finish out the season. I'm like, what? As a coach, you're like, okay, do I even want to play this guy? Okay, he probably gives us a better chance to win the game. Granted,
maybe. But
I mean, yeah, right. I mean, he's not going to.
You got to sell out completely. You got to sell out completely sometimes to get the first down or to.
And if Quinn Ewers does transfer and you're Arch Manning, why wouldn't you stay at Texas? Texas is a way better football program than UNC.
Yeah, I can't believe Ewers would go anywhere. But I mean, where is he going to get any better than Texas? Well, I don't know.
They said that he might be going to Oregon to take over for Dylan Gabriel. That's what's on the table.
That'd be a big ass check.
And they said it'd be a $4 million check, and that he would try to improve his draft stock because he's really hurt it this year.
Yeah, he should come back. It's just I would stay at Texas.
No.
Yeah. Agreed. But I mean, Oregon's not a bad stop, right?
Yeah, Oregon's got that Nike cash. They can write some pretty big checks on their own.
I'm always queasy about a player coming in for 1 year. It works out occasionally, but
Bo Nix, was he there for a year, right?
There are examples.
Yeah.
Cam Ward. I mean, there's examples, but there's a high likelihood it doesn't go right.
Right.
A decent chance that, it could be. Just stay put with your coaches. The offensive system, get in the weight room. The guys blocking for you. There's friendships there. Stay with that and fight and make your team better, especially if you're in the playoff. Texas is going to be in the playoff next year. That's a guarantee. I mean,
I think we all agree that the portal needs to move back. It needs to move into January, right?
Yeah, that's not even debatable.
Yeah, it's not debatable. Yeah, I agree.
Are you guys ready to dive into some football?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Let's go.
Come on.
All right, guys. So this is our episode 43, our college football 12-team playoff team breakdowns and predictions. And we're going to all go on record at the end of the program tonight. I've got the two highest rated teams in Vegas. They've got Oregon ranked number 1 and Texas number 2, even though Texas is the 5 seed. Vegas thinks these two are the most likely to win the championship. What are you guys' thoughts about that?
Well, I think first of all, Oregon's got the most difficult road, I would say. So I think if they're going to get there, they're going to earn it. I mean, having to face either Ohio State or Tennessee, and then potentially, Texas, probably most likely, like that's a tough road to hoe. So I actually think that, I don't know why is Georgia not ahead of Texas. I'm not sure. To me, they deserve, or they should be the favorites over Texas, but I think they get it right with Oregon for sure. They've been the best team all year.
I think Georgia's loss to Ole Miss really shook the foundations of what people thought of Georgia. But if you look at their wins, I mean, it's pretty impressive. They beat Clemson, Auburn, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, and Texas again.
They beat Texas twice.
That's a pretty good resume.
They beat Texas twice. That's why I would put Georgia over Texas too. I'm just telling you what Vegas is saying. So,
yeah. People do not believe in Beck. They think that's scary.
I would say the biggest problem those three teams have, you have Texas, you have Ewers has not been playing very well. He's been holding his team back. You have Carson Beck, who's incredibly inconsistent. He has takes the whole half off. And then you have Ohio State has a very shaky quarterback situation. They can't score points. So
and the offensive line doesn't look great.
Yeah, so those three teams, although powerhouse clubs and have a chance, I don't think any of them can touch Oregon. I just don't. They can't score with them.
Oregon's got the best quarterback, right? And so many times college football comes down to quarterback play, right? And you got a guy like Dylan Gabriel who looks to just be on another level at the quarterback spot. Like if we even think about the Heisman race, for example, right? Genty's not a quarterback. Hunter's not a quarterback, right? Like there's and no one else on here had anybody there. Like that was a quarterback. So it's crazy.
Dylan Gabriel came in.
No, I'm saying besides Gabriel, right? Yeah. I mean, it was Gabriel was the guy. So he's just light years ahead. Normally we're used to seeing one or two quarterbacks there, and we didn't see that. And so
Cam Ward came in fourth and didn't make the playoffs. So that's a good point.
Right.
I think they were a little slow to crown Gabriel because they knew Oregon was so loaded that they didn't want to act like he was the sole reason why they were winning. They were just better than everyone else that they were playing. And I came to Gabriel a little bit late. I was a little skeptical of that myself, but the last several games I watched of him, I started to give him a lot more credit for the winning instead of just spreading it around evenly across a really talented roster. Like Alabama always was. These Alabama quarterbacks get to the NFL and they struggle because they're used to throwing to a 5-star who's being covered by a 2-star. And Gabriel's kind of the same way, but I started watching him as they played better competition, and he was a reason why they were winning. He was winning battles, making good decisions. I really like his decision making. I think that's been really underrated throughout the year. I know I've underrated it until recently.
When you look at his film, he can make all the throws. He makes all the NFL throws on the route.
But it's not just the throws. He's making the right throws.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what starts to separate NFL quarterbacks is decision making.
All right. So I got
one thing on him real quick. They're obviously giving him all of the comparisons to Bo Nix, right? Obviously because of Oregon, but their yards per attempt, both right at 10 yards, right? So they're not just like heaving it a ton. They just got super athletic people, but they're very accurate quarterbacks, right? And so I think to me, like there's a reason why they haven't lost a game all season. It's because of him.
Yeah, he's a huge part of it. At first, I really thought it was because the roster was so loaded, but that's not it.
But it's partially for the roster too, because every time he throws it to a wide receiver, even if it's a little 5-yard out, they have the opportunity to go to the distance. They're just
and the offensive line had a lot of injuries the first 2 weeks, and they looked a little shaky, and they beat opponents, but not very badly. And so people were thinking, and so they started to pigeonhole Gabriel down a little bit, and that was wrong. He's excellent. It's just they really needed to get their starters back in there, and they did by week 3, and they started to steamroll people ever since. And so, You know,
So-
it's a team game. They have an awesome roster, but they felt the effect of that shaky offensive line the first couple weeks.
So here's my 3 rapid fire questions for you guys. The first one is who's the second best quarterback in the playoff? And think about all 12 teams. Who's the second best after Dylan Gabriel?
It's Clemson quarterback, I think.
You think it's
I
Klubnik?
can't think of his name. Klubnik.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Klubnik. Yes.
You don't think it's Rourke?
No, I don't think it's
Or
Rourke.
Jennings with SMU?
No, I think to me it's Klubnik. I think can do it with his feet as well as with his arm. I think their play calling gets a little bit weird sometimes. I know it's not the Ohio State guy, so I haven't played at K-State a couple of years. I'm just not sold on him. Yeah. And no, we haven't said Tennessee one time yet today. I mean, he's not bad either. So yeah, Nico.
You know what?
I will tell you,
I don't know if I said that right.
He's inconsistent.
I will tell you, Klubnik's stats are better than Dylan Gabriel's.
Yeah.
I think.
He has 282 passes for 443 attempts. That's not great, but it's decent. 3,303 yards and 33 touchdowns, 5 interceptions.
What about
Gabriel has 28 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. So just real comparable, but like a little better for Klubnik.
He's got really good stats. Yeah. What about Aller? What about Aller for Penn State?
I like Aller. I think he had shaky games, but pretty good.
He's a good. I think Aller's a good college quarterback, right? And I think I heard today or yesterday that he's coming back for another year next year because he probably knows he's going to make more money doing this than he is being on a uniform on Sundays. So I think he's a good kind of game manager kind of quarterback, but that's also the style that they play, right? They're not going to, zip it up and down.
Plus, he has the 2 best tight ends in college football. And
oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! It's so great. It's so fun to watch them play. They're incredible. Yeah, that's awesome.
44 is Brock Bowers, man.
I watch their tight ends and I just salivate. I just think to myself, both those guys are going to be on Sunday. They're just incredible.
Right.
Yeah, so he doesn't have to do very much. You just have to dump it off to them.
I think you could make a case for a few other guys, but
so
it could be Klubnik.
You guys say Klubnik. Okay.
Klubnik he played worse competition, so it's kind of harder to compare numbers.
I can go with Klubnik. I agree with you guys there. Okay, second question is, who is the best running back in the playoff?
Go ahead, Rob. I'll let you take this one first.
Well, Genty.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be Genty, right?
Is it Genty or is it Scatabo?
No. My second is Dylan Sampson and then Scatabo, but really close to each other.
Yeah. Sampson's great.
Yeah, I think it's Genty for sure too, but I'll tell you who I love watching run too is that Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I like watching him run. He runs fast, he runs hard. He's had some big games too. He's a fun running back to watch. Yeah.
And Travion for Ohio State's really good too.
Yeah.
Fun to watch.
Yeah, he's they got 2 at it. I mean, he came from Ole Miss, right? And he is just they got 2 guys there in the backfield. That's like, okay, I think any team in college football would love to have at least one of them.
Yeah.
All right. So basically we have a lot of great backs in the college playoff.
Yeah.
But I think there's 2 that are right behind Genty, and then there's a big separation.
Yeah.
And then there's really good running backs who might be in the NFL, but they're not going to be, beating out.
I don't think we've ever seen anything like Genty. If you look at his stats and his highlight runs the entire season, I don't think we've ever really seen anything like him in football. So I agree. He is definitely the best.
Judkins, that's what I was thinking of. Quinshawn Judkins for Ohio State. He's going to transfer from Ole Miss. Yeah, I love watching him run. He's fun too. Yeah.
So third question for you guys is, what do you think it feels like to hold that trophy up at the end of a national title game? Luke?
Yeah, I think to me, if you're the coach, you're seeing dollar signs. You're doing that.
Yeah. Big bonus is arriving in your account on Monday.
All right. As a player, it's just got to feel cool, right? I think representing your school, representing your friends, your family, all your teammates.
I'm sorry. I think this year it's going to be extra special because this has never been done before in college. To beat out a field of 12 teams is quite impressive, and it's going to feel special because it's the first time,
Luke, do you think Iowa State will ever hold that trophy up?
No.
You don't?
I think we have a better chance of winning basketball than we do in football.
I think you're probably right.
Like I love Coach Campbell. I love everything. I love Iowa State football more than I should. But I just think I don't know that we'll ever get there. What about you guys? What about your Virginia? Do you think that you would ever hold it up?
No.
Yeah, I mean, so
our academic standards are way too high, and we can't compete with the 5 stars.
Yeah, we can't either. I mean, we say 5-star culture over 5-star players, and I think
I
that's
think
pretty
Iowa
cool.
State's going to make the playoff, though. I really do.
I mean, I think. Look, now their conference is set up. Like we're punching at our own weight now. Whereas, like, look, we would beat Oklahoma, we'd beat Texas, not regularly. Like before, we would never beat them. But like the last 10 years, it was really probably over 500 in our favor. Honestly, I'm not just being unrealistic about that. But now, like, we don't have to play those two anymore. So we're kind of fighting at our own weight now, which feels, as far as like NIL dollars go, academic standards go, all those things. So, I mean, look, I think we can make the tournament. Is the fact that, like, can we line up and never beat Georgia or Penn State? I think that'd be a whole nother question.
Tough.
But yeah,
really tough. Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at what the bracket looked like. This is the beginning of the season. This is the end of August, preseason. And it's just hilarious to see what they were predicting back then. They had, Georgia, the 1 seed, Ohio State, the 2 seed. Those are pretty simple to pick. They had
That's not far off.
Yeah, they had Florida State sitting in the 3 seed, and they went 2-10.
Oof.
So that was
the biggest whiff.
Then Utah, did they come in 4th or 5th in the Big 12?
I think they're way even more farther down than that.
Further down than that, and so that was a huge whiff too. Texas at 5. Okay, that's a pretty good pick there. They had Oregon at 6. Obviously, they're a lot better than that. Notre Dame 7. It's about right. Missouri at 8. They didn't even make it. They were highly regarded this year, and we're just kind of a decent SEC team. You had Penn State at 9. They made it. Alabama 10. Of course, they were the last one out. Michigan at 11. Had just a horrific season for them. And then Boise State as the 12 seed, and they got in. So I guess they had about 4 total misses.
Not too bad. I mean, Utah was disappointing. That they had a good squad, and they came up short. I don't know what you call Florida State. Like, I don't even know how to categorize that mess. But everything else was pretty close. I mean, Michigan got better and had a big win against Ohio State. So they weren't a laughing stock to be in, They just didn't have enough offense.
Missouri was a miss. Michigan was a miss. Alabama was a miss, but not huge misses. I agree with that.
Yeah, and Alabama, you can make the case, should have gotten in based on talent level. They just didn't deserve it because they had too many losses.
Right.
Utah ended up 13th in the Big 12. So but also I mean, like they were on a couple. They were like on the 3rd string quarterback, for most of the season. So I think, to me, and I think I told this to you guys, when we met a few weeks ago, I live in Kansas City, so I'm Missouri, hear it all, but every single Missouri fan to a man said, if we don't make the college football playoff this year, the season's a failure. And so to me, it's like you're setting the bar super high, and look, here they are. They didn't make it.
Was that because they felt so strong about their quarterback, or what was their?
Well, quarterback and their receiver. So Luther Burden III is probably the second or third best receiver in the country. And if you're including, Travis Hunter as number 1, probably the guy from Arizona, number 2, and then Luther Burden III. And
actually, if you look at the way too early mock drafts, that's exactly how it goes. Burden goes first round, but he goes 3rd out of those 3. So
So they were stacked. They had a lot of people coming back, and the schedule, like their most difficult game was they played at A&M and at Alabama. So those are 2 tough games for sure, but they weren't even in any of those games. So
Well, so they got 7 teams right and 5 teams wrong. So I guess that's
what's interesting. Oregon was 6, but that was at the beginning. But then they won a couple of games real close, and they actually dropped. They went to 7th, and then I think 8th
Yep.
And then they started winning when they got their guys back and started just bulldozing people. But it was interesting to see the trajectory of their season started downhill a little bit. And then look at them now, fully loaded team. And
just really interesting to look back and see where we were. So,
Yeah,
all right,
cool.
let's break down each of the 12 teams. We have Oregon 13-0. They're the number 1 seed in the tournament, and they're number 1 ranked in the AP. And they have the highest ranking in Las Vegas in terms of chance to win the whole thing at plus 350. So if you go to Vegas right now, you'd be paying the most money for your return. So essentially, why it says here the Ducks can win it all. They don't get rattled in close games. They've proven they can win close games. They've proven they can go undefeated in the Big Ten, which is the second biggest conference. They had the 1-point win over Ohio State. They won a 3-point game against Wisconsin, and Dylan Gabriel is by far playing the best quarterback of anybody in the country. Any thoughts about Oregon, their chances, even though they have a really tough run to the final?
Look, I think they're the number 1 seed in the Vegas favorite for a reason, and I think we've hit on this already, but I think it comes down to quarterback play. They have excellent quarterback play. They have weapons around, and quite frankly, they got a really good head coach too. He's and if you guys seen his videos and stuff, he's like super intense, but the guys absolutely love him. They want to do anything for him. So I think to me, when you're dealing with, college kids, that goes a long ways because they're not quite, the professional ranks obviously yet. So I think to me, they're the number 1 seed for a reason. They've shown all year that they deserve to be it.
I was watching Joel Klatt last night, and he said the one thing no one ever talks about with Oregon is actually their defense is really, really good. And they have the best tandem in terms of pass rushers in the country. And so no one ever talks about their defense. But
my point is I look at talent level based on how many weak spots do they have where I could attack as somebody playing them. And Oregon's the only team that doesn't really have a weak point in the whole country. Every other team has some kind of weakness that was exposed in either a bad loss or an ugly, barely win or something. So there was a stumble in the quarterback room. They were unable to run the ball. Every single team has some flaw that you could exploit if you're a good coach, but I don't know how you attack Oregon. I mean, I've heard people say maybe you could throw on them, maybe, but the heat they're bringing is so bad that you don't even want you can't even get the throw off to beat their corners because your guy's running for his life. So
what's interesting about them is the one thing I would say about them is they don't run the ball as well as some of the other big teams.
Right.
So
but they can,
but they're really relying on their passing game. So the only team I think that can knock them off in this tournament is a team that has a tremendous pass rush and has just unrelenting pressure on Gabriel the whole game.
But Gabriel can run. So
I know.
The problem with turning it upfield is you give him gaps to run through, and then
you don't get pressure on Oregon, you're going to get diced up the whole day.
Yeah, that's right.
But you have to have controlled pressure. It has to be like run blitzes where everyone has a lane assignment, and if you let him out your lane, he's going to run for a first down, get out of bounds. You're not even going to get a hit on him. So, and then they're just going to keep chewing you up as they go. So, Oregon, no weaknesses. They have looked excellent in different ways. They can run the ball on you. They can throw. The quarterback can move the ball. Their defense comes up huge. They win games in different ways, so they can kind of use whatever tool they need against that team that day.
And I think Luke has hit on something. The coach is underrated. I mean, not a lot of people on the East Coast know about their coach. He's really good.
Did you guys watch I didn't watch it, but the Ohio State Oregon game earlier this year? So what all went down there with that? I know it was like a super, it was a 1 possession game. I think they won with a field goal at the end or something. What was it, back and forth or? It
was 39-38, and it was just one of those total shootouts where both defenses were kind of on the run all day, and both quarterbacks and offenses were really effective. Oregon mostly through the air, and Ohio State mostly on the ground.
Okay.
And it just was one of those really fun college games where you really don't know what's going to happen until the last possession. And yes, Oregon won on a field goal, 39-38.
Okay.
So, So I think that you'll probably see something similar to that if they do meet each other in the semifinals.
Right.
Because,
That's what I was kind of thinking.
Yeah, it's going to be a really great game.
Yeah.
Believe me, it'll have very high ratings.
Because Ohio State has a couple weaknesses, but they are loaded with NFL talent. So their roster shines kind of brighter than anyone else's. So I think Ohio State, Oregon is probably the best matchup.
Yeah.
Possibly.
I would agree. I still give the edge to Gabriel over the Ohio State quarterback situation.
Yeah.
It's weak.
Yeah, he's not good. He's not good.
I don't love him at all. He's a bit,
Let's go to
under pressure.
Number 2 seed Georgia. They're 11-2. They had 2 kind of head scratching losses this year, mostly because Carson Beck has been very up and down, very inconsistent. Even in some of the games they won, he had really bad halves, and people just don't understand what he's doing sometimes and who he's throwing to. They're the number 2 ranked team as well in the AP. Why they can win it all? Well, just look at their talent level. They've got 5 stars all over the place. They have a dominant defensive line. They've got Etienne, who's been really getting great towards the end of the season. His last 4 games were just behind Ashton Genty in terms of effectiveness. The defense keeps them in all games with their pressure and with their overall run stuffing. So they're going to be in every game. The question is, can Carson Beck get them over the hump? And that's going to be something to watch. Any thoughts about Georgia, Carson Beck? Can he be consistent? Can he get him there?
I mean, is he for sure in or for sure out? Do we know?
He's in.
He's in for sure. Okay.
Yep.
I think, to me, look, we kind of talked about the surprising teams like that are in. To me, Georgia's been like the strangest team all season, right? They seem like they're super high, super low. They go to that, what is it? That 4 or 5, 6 OT game with Georgia Tech. I watched all that. That was pretty crazy. I think
that was wild.
Yeah. I think, to me, look, we know all about Georgia, right? They got the talent, they got all the things, but again, it's on Carson Beck. I don't really trust him all that much. I think the talent around him makes up for his inefficiencies and his ineffectiveness. But I still think, look, they're Georgia. They're probably I know Tom's got some other feelings about this, but they're probably the favorites to come out of that half of that bracket, obviously. So, I mean, I think too, they do it in a lot of different ways. I can't remember the running back. There's a running back, the kind of wide receiver guy that comes out of the backfield all the time. He's really fun to watch. Gosh, I'm slipping on his name right now, but it's not just Etienne or Smith.
Frazier? Is it Nate Frazier?
No, that's not his name. Gosh darn it, I can't remember. But regardless, look, I think they're the number 2 seed for a reason, because they're Georgia and they've only lost 2 games all season. So. Well,
there's something else I'll mention is that Kirby Smart is coaching the team, and he's a really good coach, and he has the most experience of all the coaches out of the 12. He has the most experience, having several titles under his belt now. And you can see he's 7-1 in SEC title games. So I mean, he's proven.
There are 2 defenses that I really enjoy watching in college football: Georgia and Texas, and then a third who's close is Tennessee. And there are some others after that, believe me. But I enjoy watching them play when they're on the field. And the thing with Carson Beck is Georgia could beat anybody if he doesn't throw picks. If somehow he corrals that in, throws safe picks, they have a good offensive game plan, their defense is going to keep it close, and they could break it open.
And I will say that Stockton, the backup, if he does get forced into action because Beck is still hobbled, which is certainly possible. I think he might be better than Beck. I think he may actually give them a better chance to win this.
He's mobile, so yeah.
So I think if they end up having to go with Stockton because Beck is kind of a game time decision, I don't think they're going to fall off much with Stockton.
Right.
That's the way I look at it.
It's going to come down to if Beck throws picks. If he throws picks, if he's in that 4-pick game against Ohio State or something, they're just not going to win that. But if
they won't beat Notre Dame if he does that.
Correct.
Honestly. I mean,
if he has 0 or 1 pick, I think they got a legitimate shot. So it's going to come down to whether he can control himself.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
He's had some really good games this year. His stats aren't really that bad. And they played everybody. I mean, they played Clemson, Auburn, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, Florida, Tennessee, Texas a second time. I mean, nobody else has a resume like Georgia. Nobody.
So in Vegas, they're the third ranked team in Vegas. They're at plus 400. So that's pretty interesting. They think, Texas, Oregon, and then Georgia. So that's interesting. That's how they feel about it.
Hey, when we go through this, let's get everybody's opinion. Value, who we would put money on to win it.
Yep.
Okay, let's do that. Let's do that.
Drop a comment down below for Luke. Tell Luke who you think is going to win it.
Yeah,
and who's the best value.
Yeah, best value, best betting value.
I like that. Let's go to Boise. They're really surprising number 3 seed, although they're 8th ranked in the AP. So really kind of surprising sitting at the number 3 seed. Look at their odds in Vegas, plus 6,000. So Vegas doesn't think very much of their chances in this bracket. But in terms of why they can win it all, I think it really comes down to one thing, and that's SgZ&x, who's the most special back we've seen in 10 or 20 years. Heisman finalist, racked up yardage like we've never seen before. What are your thoughts about this? And I know Boise's defense also is a little bit better than a lot of people thought.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
What do you guys think? Can they win a game or two in this bracket?
No. I think I have a couple of issues with Boise. I think first of all, I don't think that they deserved a first round bye. Quite frankly, I think I think it should have gone to somebody else. I love SgZ&x. I think he's been so fun to watch. And Tom, I know you probably love him more than anybody that I know, and you've been talking about him all season long. And so I obviously knew about him. Then talking to you, I'm like, holy smokes, I really got to watch this guy. Yeah, he's incredible. Yeah.
He has five touchdowns of 75 yards or more.
Yeah, that's insane. That's insane. So
only one other player's done that, and it was LaDainian Tomlinson.
And I don't know, I might be a little bit of recency bias here, but like I didn't think they looked great against UNLV. They got out to a 21-0 lead and then just didn't do anything. They beat Wyoming a few weeks before that by 4, kind of skated by. I think, and I'm curious to see what you guys think here. Tom, what do you think the spread would be? Penn State and Boise State, hypothetically.
What would the spread be?
Yeah.
About Penn State minus 11, probably.
Okay.
Something like that.
I think that's probably about right. I mean, I think to me, I don't bet sports. I guess I do every once in a while, but if that number is under 10, I'm going to hammer the hell out of that thing, because I think that if Penn State advances, I think that they have a really good chance of just blowing Boise out. But I think it's been kind of a fun story. But all right, later.
It's been a really fun story. I would say, and all you Mountain West fans out there, please don't write us nasty grams. Write us positive comments. But there's no Mountain West champion, in my opinion, that deserves a bye in the playoff. At least not at this juncture. Now, if the conference develops, but they won their conference. Hail to them. They were 12-1. They didn't play very many good teams this year. They have
just UNLV. This is the only win on their whole schedule.
Yeah, their best win was an Oregon loss, quite frankly. I mean, that's because they played Oregon so tight, they're getting credit
37-34 against Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, that is
that's good. But
Oregon was number 7 at the time. That was week 2, I think it was. They were number 7.
There's several exhibits about why we need to reseed after the 12 teams get in, and this is Exhibit A. Right. Exhibit A is Boise State should not be the 3 seed.
Spot on, Tom. Spot on.
Yeah, exactly right.
I think they could win one with a lucky game, running the ball and playing decent defense and causing the other team to make some mistakes. I don't think it's going to happen. I wouldn't put money on that, but it wouldn't shock me if they got one round off.
They could hang in there for
against a team that maybe gets beat up a little in round 1 and takes a few injuries.
They have a good enough team to hang in there for a half, but I think against any Big Ten or SEC team, second half they get worn out.
Right.
That's what I think.
Round 1 teams are the best matchups, so those teams are going to beat the hell out of each other. That's right. Some of those teams are going to come limping into round 2, and that's why some of these lesser teams that shouldn't even have buys might be able to take advantage. There might be like one upset somewhere in there, and then they'll get slaughtered in the next game. So
that's right.
I think there might be one of those kind of upsets in there.
So our next team, I want to lean really heavily on Luke here to tell us about this guy, Cameron Scatabo, and the Arizona State Sun Devils. And it was about 5 weeks ago when they started coming on that this whole concept of fear the fork started kind of taking all over college football. And they started talking about on ESPN Game Day and fear the fork, fear the fork. But, you know, essentially this team was picked last in their conference and comes out, wins the Big 12 championship game against your Cyclones. And I don't know. I think they're kind of scary. I know they're plus 5,000 in Vegas, but I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to play them right now.
I wouldn't want to play them. They're hot and they can run the ball.
Yeah, they've won. So they've won 6 in a row. Prior to that, they lost at Cincinnati, but their quarterback didn't play. So they've won. They've won 8 out of their last 9 games. And so, and to me, it's not like those wins are like, okay, we said Utah is not very good, obviously, right? But beat K-State, IU, beat Iowa State, beat Kansas. So like, there's a few tough games in there, I would say. But yeah, I mean, for those of you that haven't watched Arizona State play, they basically have a freight train / bull / bulldozer in the backfield.
Rob calls him John Riggins, but
yeah.
But he's in way better shape than John Riggins. He's like John Riggins, who's a good shape.
Some of our younger viewers might not know who that is either. So,
I know.
I just want to say, like, he's insane. Honestly, he's so fun to watch. He doesn't go down. I would love to know his yards after contact. They got to be highest in the nation. He does not go down at first contact. Iowa State couldn't tackle him. I've never seen anything like it in my entire life. We could not tackle him.
I saw a high school video of him. You talk about guys bouncing off him.
Unbelievable.
That was ridiculous. He would go through and they'd try and get him in the backfield. He'd brush that guy off. He'd go through some kind of hole. He'd meet one linebacker there. He'd stiff arm him. Another linebacker would try and tackle him. He'd throw him on the ground. Then he'd put his shoulder down, smash it to the safety, and then he'd keep going. And like it took 6 guys, and they tackle him 30 yards downfield.
Yeah, I mean he didn't even barely play the second half versus Iowa State in the Big 12 championship game, and he just had a monster day. So I will say, so there's a couple things to really talk about with this team though. So their quarterback Sam Leavitt, he's actually super good, super consistent. Thrown for almost 2,700 yards, 24 touchdowns, only 5 picks. So makes a lot of good plays. He can run. He's kind of those guys, like, he doesn't run a lot, but when it's 3rd and 8 and everybody's covered, he will take off and run. So one big thing though that, you know, might hurt them as they hopefully progress down this bracket is they don't have their quarterback Jordan Tyson. So or excuse me, their receiver, Jordan Tyson. So he was the leading receiver on their team, had over 1,000 yards, 75 receptions. Their next closest receiver had 15 receptions.
Oh, wow.
So 75. Then they had Scatabo was next, and then a couple of tight ends, and then a receiver. So just keep an eye on that. I mean, this guy was an all Big 12, all Big 12 performer, first team all Big 12. So they don't have his services. So a team that maybe has a little better defense could potentially stack the box against Scatabo, and that could hurt them. So, but look, I don't know. I mean, I don't see them probably run the table, but you give me the hottest team in college football at plus 5,000. I like that value quite a bit, quite frankly.
Throw 20 bucks down,
throw 20 bucks at it and make a payday.
I'll take a hot team over a talented team.
Yeah, I love this sentence for Luke where it says he made life miserable for Ohio State.
He did. It was. I don't turn games off. I almost turned this one off because it was just we could not tackle this kid. It was unbelievable. So it was kudos to them. They beat the brakes off of us. So it'd be. For those of you that haven't watched him, check him out. It's actually a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah,
Luke didn't sleep for a couple of nights, but he's sleeping again. So
I said last week on our podcast that I would have put him 5th in the Heisman voting.
Yeah, I mean he definitely deserved to be up there. I mean he had 1,600 yards, 19 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So
now, are we in agreement that Arizona State should not be the number 4 seed? if we reseeded this thing?
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I mean they're hot, but
they're beatable.
Yeah, they're beatable.
Like,
yeah.
should the Big 12 champion get a bye or not? I guess that's what we got to decide. Or are we going to
No. I don't think anybody should get an automatic bye. It should be done by ranking.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing with the Big 12 is all the teams are so they're so alike. So there's always going to be a Big 12 team with probably 1 or 2 losses, unless they're just like out of this world, insanely good. You know,
I noticed that Big 12 was so entertaining this year.
Oh my gosh.
It's for that reason. And the SEC
Yeah.
too. So if you're in the SEC or if you're in the Big 12 or those two conferences, they beat the crap out of each other.
Yeah.
And they literally beat every week. You're facing some opponent that is really good. And it's, man.
It would be, I mean, there'd be a 10-point favorite losing, week in and week out in the Big 12. It's just because, like, I mean, Kansas was a team that was loaded with talent, lost 3 or 4 one-score games right away, and then, like, everybody wrote them off, and they won 5 or 6 in a row, or 4 or 5 in a row.
That was one of those disappointing teams that was really loaded.
Hey, yeah, that's right. I mean, they had a ton of guys coming back, and just
they have a back on Kansas who's fantastic.
Devin Neal. Devin Neal will be playing on Sundays. I don't know where he's ranked as far as draft, but he's got to be a 2nd or 3rd rounder for sure. He's a lot of fun to watch.
He had a couple incredible weeks for Kansas.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, let's move on to Texas. They're the number 5 seed, and yet what's funny is they are tied with Oregon as the 2nd most likely to win the whole thing. You've got Quinn Ewers, who's been really kind of disappointing all year and has also had a little bit of an injury bug. So they've had to bring in Arch Manning a couple of times during the season. The only losses he's had all year at 11-2, twice he's lost to the Georgia Bulldogs. So this will be really interesting to see if Texas can pull this thing together. They have the talent, maybe the best roster in football behind Ohio State. They have tremendous depth at almost every position, unlike a lot of the other big contenders. So what do you guys think about Texas? I mean, they've been kind of a little head scratching this year. I can't really figure them out.
I think a lot of things that people don't talk about with them are their defense. Their defense is nasty. They're fun to watch. They don't give up a lot of points, honestly. I mean, they gave up, I think the most points they gave up was 30 points to Georgia in that first loss. Other than that, they gave up 24 points. That was the next highest all season. So, and they're playing some good teams, right? So, and I think, Tom, to your point, just sometimes Quinn Ewers will just do some stuff. You're like, what in the hell are you doing? And you're like, all you got to do is not mess this up. Just be a efficient quarterback. You got all the talent in the world. Just do that. And that's probably their defense and their talent level, Tom, to your point, is probably why they're the 2nd highest favorite, right? They're plus 350. So
they're just stacked with 5 stars all over the place.
Stacked with 5 stars.
I think the disappointing part of Texas has been their running game. Everyone talks about Ewers being disappointing, but I think they put a lot of pressure on him because they were not very effective running the ball. And Ewers played okay a lot of the season. He definitely struggled a little down the stretch. But I love their defense. That's one of those 2 that I love watching. And so I don't hear a lot of people talk about Texas's defense. When they went toe-to-toe with Georgia, it looked kind of like Georgia's defense was really dominating Texas's defense, like against the other's offense. But honestly, they were kind of even. The parts that won that game were other parts of Georgia. But I'm not super happy with how Texas is running the ball. But I think it's Texas. Like, I think they can get it done.
Notice that Quinn Ewers and Carson Beck, they're essentially the same quarterback. I think they're both game managers.
Yeah.
On incredible top 3 rosters. That's what they are.
Right.
And the problem with Ewers is that he's not very athletic, and so he can't prolong plays long enough to get his wide receivers open as much as he should be able to. I think the play is to put Arch out there.
I do too.
Because he's athletic. He can run 22 miles an hour.
Yeah. I said midseason they should go to Arch Manning for the rest of the year, but of course nobody listened to me there. Do you think?
Do you think Sarkisian is a good enough coach to get him to the championship?
I don't know. I really
Maybe.
don't know. He hasn't proven it to me yet.
Yeah.
He has the team for it. There's no
Yeah.
question about that.
Yeah.
My other question to you guys is this going to affect Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, that both of them are being rumored to go somewhere else after the season? I mean, they're human, right? Can they get that out of their minds? Can they focus on what's essentially a 3-game tournament?
I don't know that this is not rumor at this point. You know, like
even if it's rumor, doesn't it?
It's hard to pin down what's really happening. So, you know, maybe they're really locked in and ready to go and fully committed to the program and getting their NIL money, and they're happy possibly there. I don't know.
Yeah, I think to me, I would say my opinion is it doesn't affect them at all. I think like there's probably just been this pressure and all these things since day one that they stepped on campus. And so I would say that doesn't affect it at all.
And it doesn't serve Quinn Ewers' agenda to play poorly. Like he's not going to get NIL money going somewhere else if he stinks up the playoffs.
I still really like Texas's roster. I agree with you guys about the defense, but in terms of your question about Sarkisian, Luke, I just haven't seen it yet. And until I see him get them to the final and prove it on the field, then I'll believe it.
I'll tell you.
Do you like this? Do you like this number plus 350?
No.
Yeah.
Having them tied with Oregon? No.
I don't either. Yeah.
I think Sarkisian's extremely good with quarterbacks, and I think he's going to coach him up with a couple of weeks prep time.
You think they're going to build some packages in for Arch?
Yes.
Probably, yes.
Yes.
They have
he
time
does some
to
cool stuff like that. He does some cool stuff like that. And so
some packages. Yeah.
He's a good offensive mind. I think he understands the limitations of Ewers. That's why a lot of the play calling is head scratching. And I think if you were to ask him off the record, he would tell you, because I was worried about Ewers. I was worried about what he would do.
He's brought Arch in a couple times this season when they knew they needed athleticism. He's done it a couple times. So.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Penn State, 11-2. They're the number 6 seed behind Texas. They are number 5 in the rankings. They're at 625, Luke, in Vegas. In terms of why they can win it all, of course, they have Aller. They've got a fantastic running game. They've got these 2 beast tight ends who are going to play on Sunday. They have the best pass rusher in football, Abdul Carter, who has 20 tackles for loss and 10 sacks.
That's crazy.
He's pictured right there. They say he's really the only defender out of the 12 teams that is the best player on his team. Their best player is a defender, and that's Abdul Carter.
Yeah.
And they're rumoring, by the way, Abdul Carter to go to the Carolina Panthers at number 5 in the draft. So we'll see.
Nice.
But any thoughts about Penn State? What are their chances? Can they make a deep run?
By the way, I don't know if he's better than number 44, the tight end, but that's a separate.
That's what they're saying. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
You know what I was surprised about with Penn State? They haven't really beaten anybody. Their best win is West Virginia.
Yeah.
Yeah, their schedule was I would say their schedule was a little easy this year. I would agree with you.
I will say, though, the way they played Oregon in that title game was pretty impressive.
They lost to Ohio State by 7, so.
Yeah, they had real nice games against basically 1 and 2 in the country, Oregon and Ohio State, but they didn't win them. So, like,
I will also say
their resume is a little thinner than you might think.
I want to know from Luke, how in the world do they go in? They lose to Oregon 45-37. They play really well. Mm-hmm. How do they then go into the playoff and get an easier draw than Oregon to make it to the semifinals?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, to your point, Tom, the reseeding has to happen, right? Because to me, look, Penn State's a lock to get to the we call them the Final Four. Is that what we're calling them? I don't know. Okay, a lock to get to the Final Four, right? I don't think SMU poses much of a challenge. I think they pose more of a challenge than Boise State will. And there's one thing we know about Penn State is they can beat the snot out of bad teams. Like, I don't think any of these teams are bad, right? That's probably not the right thing to say, but James Franklin has a tendency to against a better team in Ohio State, you just cannot get that monkey off his back.
Yeah, you
But when
can't
it
get it done.
comes to playing, UCLA or Washington or Purdue, hey, let's name our score and let's never stop scoring. So,
Well, and I look at what the Nittany Lions did in that title game. They ran 35 times for 292 yards and averaged 7 yards a carry. I mean, that kind of offense can beat anybody. I mean, they could beat somebody on the right day.
Yeah, and Aller's not bad, right?
No,
but he's
pretty good.
He's pretty good. He's just not a guy that's going to be like flashy. And I mean, he can win the game for you. Like, don't get me wrong, but he's just not a guy that like, yeah, that's our horse. Like, we're going to win it on his arm. Like
I agree.
Yeah,
I think he's going to play on Sundays, but he should go in to the deep part of the bench for about 3 to 4 years minimum.
I'm with Luke. I think they're the only team, if you look at the 4 sides of the bracket, that is already penciled into the Final Four. I agree with Luke.
Yeah.
I think all the other ones are suspect.
Well, they had a nice, easy year, so why not just keep it rolling?
Just keep it rolling so they don't have to play anybody still.
You're spot on there, Rob. Yeah.
And by the way, I will say, I'm not sure that there's an easy path in the championship. I don't know that we know that yet.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. But I just think that they got an easier draw. I mean, there's no question about it. We'll talk about that. But
like if you're facing Tennessee or Texas, but both their quarterbacks go down, all of a sudden, or not necessarily Texas, but
so this next team, Notre Dame at 11-1, did not play in a title game because they're not in a conference. They're the number 7 seed, but they're number 3 in the AP poll, which seems kind of a dichotomy there. Right. They're sitting at plus 900 in Vegas. They've been kind of under the radar all year because they had that disastrous loss to Northern Illinois. Mm-hmm. But if you watch them come on, Riley Leonard and all of his weapons have just been getting better every week, and they're starting to absolutely dominate people. So what do you guys think about the Fighting Irish, what their chances are?
I think, to me, if you're talking about pure money value, this is the play, right? They got to beat an Indiana team. They do got to beat a Georgia team. I get it. That's no easy task. Mm-hmm. But this team, Riley Leonard, he's been there, done that. He's a proven winner, proven quarterback. I already mentioned Jeremiah Love earlier. He's almost 1,000-yard rusher. Yeah. I think he might have even missed some of the season to start the year. Granted, their schedule is a little bit, as the kids would say, sus. A little bit, I don't know for sure. Like, but they did beat the bad team. They beat the bad teams. They beat the Virginias.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
sorry guys, I had to say that.
They did beat A&M. They pounded Army.
Yeah, I mean, they pounded Army. They pounded Navy. I mean, they beat USC by 14. Like, the one loss in Illinois, definitely weird, right? Hell, they won at A&M. That's a damn good win.
That's
a really good win.
That was a great win. But honestly, they didn't have a tremendous resume. It was an okay resume.
Yeah.
I think they're a dangerous team because they were getting hot.
I will tell you, they lead the league out of these 12 teams. They lead in interceptions, and everyone's saying that they have the most ball hawks on their defense. They have like 7 or 8 guys on their defense that all have at least 1 interception this year. So I don't know. They're pretty dangerous.
I guarantee when they made their schedule last year, like, oh, this is going to be tough because they played. Okay, they got Georgia Tech, Navy, Florida State. Okay, I think that was probably going to be a tough game. At USC, thought that would probably be a tough game. So it's like, I think they tried to schedule a little tough.
They thought it was going to be tough.
Yeah, but it just ended up being a little easier than
Yeah, that was true. Well, I mean, they're affiliated with the ACC, so they have to play at least 5 ACC games. So.
Right.
Yeah. Any other thoughts about Notre Dame?
I'm a little worried about their ability to throw the ball. I like Riley Leonard, but they don't have a great stable of wide receivers. Their top receiver, Collins, has 427 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's not great.
They do a lot of damage on the ground, though. I mean,
tight end play.
Yeah, they do a ton of damage on the ground with those guys. I think to me that's
The only way you can beat Oregon really is throwing the ball, I think.
They can't get into a shootout though with like an Oregon. They just
no.
I think you could catch lightning in a bottle and beat Oregon if you're able to pick apart their secondary and if your offensive line can hold up,
And
which
gets maybe like 2 interceptions or something.
Notre Dame's offensive line could hold up against Oregon.
They live off turnovers. Notre Dame is the turnover, capital
Yeah.
of college football. So,
But I'm a little worried about their throwing game. They're going to need it at some times during the playoff, and I don't think it's going to be there. So
let's talk about the number 8 seed, number 6 ranked Ohio State. They're 10-2. They did not make the Big Ten championship game, which was really surprising. Everyone had penciled them in. They do have these 2 unbelievable backs that Luke was talking about earlier, Judkins and Trevion Henderson. Mm-hmm. So they just bludgeon you with their running game. The quarterback play has been really disappointing, and I think that they've tried to find ways with Will Howard to give him lots of short stuff out in the flat, little screens, little things to the tight end, because they're kind of hiding him. That's the way it looks like to me.
Yeah.
They don't really let him loose in terms of real long passes, which is really incredible because they have this unbelievable receiving core, which are all going to be NFL players. So
there's 3 receivers and 2 running backs are all NFL, and they're saying that the 2 running backs are both first-round picks.
Yeah, and yet Will Howard can't get them the ball, so it's kind of
right. Will Howard is the weak link there.
This was the biggest. Oh, sorry, Rob. Go ahead.
No, just pressure is how you would attack them.
This was the biggest head scratcher to me in the offseason leading up to this. It's like, what in the hell are they doing going and get Will Howard? Because he's not the guy. I watched him play at K-State. He's a true game manager if there ever was one, right? Like, he can't. It's. I think to me, this is a problem for Ohio State going in here. You're so loaded. I want to take them so bad to win this whole thing, but I just can't because of Will Howard, right? You got John. Yeah. I mean, you have the best freshman wide receiver that's probably, and Jeremiah, like, he's already like a top 5 receiver in the country, and he's a freshman. He's
By the way,
amazing.
you know who Ohio State had on their roster last year and they let him go in the offseason?
No.
He came in, what was it, 8th in the Heisman voting? Kyle McCord from Syracuse.
Oh, yeah. Okay, duh. Yeah, he was our starter last year.
Why in the world they didn't keep him? Because they would be tearing it up with
I don't understand what they were going to do there. So,
well, you could ask how'd they let Joe Burrow go, but that's bringing up some bad.
Right.
Bad.
Do you guys like this value at plus 500 if you walk up to the window?
I mean, I do. I mean, I like it. I wouldn't do it. I mean, to me, that upper quadrant, that Ohio State, Tennessee is the toughest quadrant. So if I'm going to earn my $500, they're going to be, if I'm going to put my money on them, I'm going to have to earn it. Let's just say that.
If you're in a bracket with Tennessee and Oregon, I couldn't put even $20 down on it.
No, I'm with you.
I don't think they're coming out of that bracket.
Yeah. So I'll say value. It's, I think that the number is high for a reason, right? Like, because it needs to be high.
Yeah.
I also heard today too, this is kind of funny. This is the first time since Ohio State's been in the college football playoff that they're a favorite. So that was kind of, I never would have guessed that. So it was kind of outrageous to hear that stat.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
I know we haven't talked about Tennessee yet, but do you guys think Iamaliva is good enough to win this whole thing?
No. He's too inconsistent.
Good segue, Rob.
No way.
Well, let's talk about it. Robbie,
good segue.
Tell us what you think of Tennessee. 10-2, number 9, number 7 ranked, with Dylan Sampson, your favorite back other than Gentry.
He's my second favorite back.
So what do you think? Do you think Nico can take them all the way, or what's your thought?
I don't. I mean, Dylan Sampson running is a lot like Gentry running, but I like Madsen better. Iamaliva's had kind of a shaky year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, he's only got 19 touchdowns this year. That's not a lot. I mean, he's got a lot of yards, but not a lot of touchdowns. But again, they get a lot of their they do a lot of damage on the ground, right?
He's really talented. I think he needs another season or 2 of seasoning.
Yeah,
he just looked really better on experience this year. I think he will get better. They had 3 weeks in a row in the middle of the season where they didn't score in the first half. And that's when I realized that this guy wasn't ready for prime time. Their defense is so good. Their running game is so good.
Yeah.
And just like all these other power programs, Tennessee is being held back by their quarterback. That's just how I feel.
Right.
And, but I do think he's going to be a really good player one day. I just think he
might blossom.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
But he's not ready for the playoff.
Tennessee's a dangerous team. They're the kind of team that can hold you down on points and keep the game really close and kind of steal one at the end, maybe with like a Dylan Sampson run or something. So they're dangerous. They're dangerous. But going all the way, no, I don't see that happening.
Plus 2,500, that's a big number too. But
that I would put $20 on.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. But unless Nico just has two of the biggest games of his life, which I guess is
it's possible. It's possible, but
we haven't seen any evidence of it yet. So
right.
So yeah, I don't think so. But they have the best defense in the SEC statistically. So
yeah, their defense to me is the second most fun defense to watch behind Texas. Just you look at you hear the old cliche, the eye test, just fast, big humans that just fly around and just look like they want to kill somebody. Like that's the Tennessee defense. And so, I love, to me, this is the best matchup of the first round is Ohio State and Tennessee. Seeing what that Ohio State offense can do. I just bagged the quarterback for 5 minutes, but ultimately they have a ton of talent, right?
Think about that, Luke. They went 10-2. And there's only one team that scored more than 23 points the entire season. That was
that's insane. And that's crazy. Yeah, that's unbelievable. So, I mean, I think that's going to be an awesome game to watch.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That's good. Huge ratings.
Yeah.
Let's go to your favorite, Indiana, Luke. They're the number 10 seed, number 9 ranked. They have this kid, Curtis Rourke, who is a Canadian. I didn't realize that until I was doing the research for this program.
Yeah.
Comes from Canada. And apparently all of Canada is really rooting for him. They love the Hoosiers and they love Rourke. But they have this incredible story this year. They bring in a new coach. He brings in 30 guys in the transfer portal, mostly from JMU. Their offense absolutely explodes. They play really solid defense. They can run the ball. They really can do everything. And they've proven they can play with the big boys. They do have one loss to Ohio State, which, who doesn't? They beat Michigan. What are your thoughts about Indiana and their chances?
Yeah, so I've watched Indiana play quite a bit because I'm in, Big 12, Big 10 country here. And actually, to take a step back even further, I watched Curtis Rourke play last year when he was at Ohio.
Right.
Iowa State went to Ohio and actually lost. And Curtis Rourke beat us. And so when I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's a playmaker. He's just, you gotta when you see a winner, just a guy that does everything, kind of like the quarterback from Vandy, that Pavia guy, does everything for his team. That's what Rourke was last year for Ohio, and he's this year for Indiana. And I absolutely love. I hope other programs are going to do this in the future, but instead of trying to go get some retread 5-star quarterback to bring into your transfer portal that's just not any good, go get a guy at a lesser school that knows how the hell to win, right? I think to me that's gonna like this, the Miller Moss guy that I don't remember where he ended up
USC.
at, but
USC.
but where is he's in the portal right now, and I don't know where he landed at, but why would I want him?
Louisville. He's going to Louisville.
That's right, Louisville. And so I kind of went on a tangent there, but this, my point is this guy's a winner. He's been winning his whole career.
Yeah.
And so there's no it's not a coincidence that they're 11-1. They're 11-1 because they're a damn good football team, right? With a damn good coach. And so I think they will give Notre Dame all that they can handle. I really do. I just don't know if they have the weapons at the end of the day to make it all go.
What's interesting is he was 70% completion percentage the entire season, and he only threw 4 picks.
Yeah.
Which to me is just incredible.
Yeah, he almost threw for 3,000 yards.
Throw it for 3,000 yards, you have 4 interceptions.
He's so well coached that he's ready for every moment. Situational football, making good decisions. Cignetti's an amazing coach. So
Cignetti just got the coach of the year in college football, which I think he deserved it. Yeah,
absolutely deserves it.
Yeah, so
he's a star.
I think they're going to give Notre Dame everything they want. I think this may even be like a 3-point game or like a field goal type game. I do think Notre Dame's going to come out on top, but I think it's going to be really tough.
I think people are maybe sleeping on this game a little bit more than they should. To me, I think this game might even be better than Texas and Clemson, as far as like watchability and like just closeness. I mean, definitely not the, name brand cachet that those two teams have, but I think like, and I already said this too, but like, two Indiana teams going at each other, like that's a real thing. So, there's a rivalry there for sure.
I can't even tell you, Luke, how excited I am for these first round games.
Yeah. My wife asked me, she's like, so are we just like not doing anything on Saturday? I'm like, yeah, basically, because I'm going to be glued to the TV all day. So
she has to understand.
Yeah. She just has to understand. She's been with me for 5 years now. So
what they call that, football widow.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
So would you throw $20 down at plus 4,000?
Nah.
No.
Okay.
I think I might.
Yeah.
Yeah. $20.
I'd throw $20 of your money down.
Okay.
No, I probably wouldn't even do that, Tom. I respect you too much. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about SMU. Another surprising team comes out of nowhere, joins the ACC. They're the number 11 seed, number 12 ranked. They slip into the playoff just ahead of Alabama, also sitting at plus 4,000. This kid, Kevin Jennings, just emerged out of nowhere. Nobody's really ever heard of him. And then this year, it's over 3,000 yards passing. Everyone thought SMU was a running team until they watched this guy play all season. They actually can really pass the ball. Their defense is really solid. What are your thoughts about SMU, their chances? Can they give anybody a scare in the first round?
Yeah, I like watching SMU on TV. I think that they're a fun team. Like literally, they're a fun team to watch. They're flashy. They're super fast. I just don't know that they got the horsepower to hang with a Penn State. I mean, I do think like if they beat Penn State, I think they'll beat Boise. So I think that there is a route there for them to the Final Four, but I just don't know. I mean, so their two losses are what they lost to BYU earlier in the year, I think, right?
Yep.
And then they lost to Clemson in the championship game.
Clemson in the championship game.
Yeah.
BYU was 18-15, real close.
Yeah, real close. And I think that was before people kind of knew that BYU was any good. Probably before anybody knew both these teams were any good, quite frankly, BYU or SMU. Right. So I mean, to play Clemson to a tight game in Charlotte, right, is not an easy thing to do in that ACC championship game.
And by the way, really, SMU should have won that game.
Yeah, so, I know. Yeah. Was it 50 some yarder? But yeah. So,
and this kid, Brochard Smith, is a really good back too. So they've got some nice weapons. I mean, they can beat you.
Robbie, go ahead, Rob. I was curious to pick your brain here.
Yeah, what do you think of SMU, Robbie?
You've watched him more than me. What are your thoughts?
I think they were really impressive the way they hung around in the ACC, right around 3, 4, 5 behind Miami and Clemson all year, and they just kind of kept taking care of business. I think they're really well coached. I love their running game. I think Kevin Jennings is a good athlete who can do some good stuff. I think they're going to kind of run out of magic when they hit a really superior defense, but they're a really amazing story. To me, they're the second best story of the year behind Indiana.
Mm-hmm. What do you think? When I watch Jennings play, he reminds me of Teddy Bridgewater when he was at Louisville. He just has a very similar style.
I think he's a little more mobile, though.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. But, really surprising. And would it shock anybody if SMU pulls off an upset in the first round? Would that shock you guys?
Not really. They're pretty well coached, and they have a winning culture. They don't care what the stats say and who's above them. They just kind of like plod along and let the other teams make mistakes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So they're an 8.5 point underdog. Do you guys think that there's some good value there at getting 8.5 points there with that game against Penn State?
I do.
Yeah,
I do. I do
too.
Penn State doesn't blow teams out usually. I mean,
I like Penn State to win this game by a touchdown. So yes, I think there's some value.
Yeah,
Penn State blows out bad teams, but not good teams. They
play
tight games.
They'll blow out bad teams. They will blow out bad teams, but a lot of people blow out bad teams.
SMU is going to give it everything they got.
Right, Rob.
SMU is not going to get blown out. I mean, I'm thinking this is a 31-24 type game.
Yeah.
The way they play, they keep it close, and then they have a winning culture. It's a scary team to play. You don't want to play them. Even if you're better than them, you don't want to play them.
I would take the 8.5 with Luke over the plus 4,000. I think the plus 4,000 would be throwing your money away, but I would take the 8.5. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. Our final seed. This is Clemson. They were written off a couple of weeks back. They found their way into the ACC championship game by having Miami lose an inexplicable loss at the end of the year. They really shouldn't even be here. They're sitting in the 12 seed spot and they're number 13 ranked. They do have this kid who's been coming on, and they said that really Clemson's season turned about 4 games into the season when this kid, Wesco, started coming on and becoming the number 1 receiver for Klubnik. And he's become a serious deep threat, and every time they throw it to him, he can go. Clemson, though, well coached. Their coaching staff is really deep and has been in a lot of playoff situations and really important game situations. So they got into that game with SMU, found a way to get it done, and now find themselves sitting in the 12th spot. So what do you thought about Clemson? Can they be a dangerous team? Can they pull off an upset?
Look, I watched Clemson. I used to work in Rock Hill, South Carolina for 2 years, and I had a lot of deep Clemson ties there. So I watched them quite a bit. So I know you guys are down there in that territory as well. But I think I don't know. I watched almost that entire South Carolina game. They gave that game away. They should have won that game. I agree with you, Tom. I don't think that do they deserve to be in here? Probably not. I think that they're not as good as they have been in years past. We'll say that, right? No, I do think, however, they are dangerous, right? I mean, Big Klubnik, he's thrown for 3,300 yards. He's rushed for almost 500 yards. So, he can make plays.
And you said he was the second best quarterback.
I do.
You both said that.
I think he's the second best quarterback in this deal. So
he has 33 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So if that's true, then yes, they're dangerous. If they have the second best quarterback.
I think their defense is a little bit weak. I don't think there's a lot of big kind of play making, ball hawking guys there. The running game's pretty strong. I do think they have 1,000-yard rusher, but
they give up a lot of yards on the ground to the opposing team too. Like SMU just ran all over them.
Yeah, a ton. That's
concerning.
To me, is like they can't. I mean, they can stop a nosebleed, but not very much. So, I mean, they've given up a ton of points to a lot of teams this year. Is just so I think to me, like they're a weak 12 seed. They're the 12 seed for the right reason.
Yeah, I agree. We were talking to Tommy DiCarlo in the episode this past week, and he loves Clemson, and he was saying he felt like they could pull off an upset here.
Yeah,
maybe win at least one game, but
right.
We shall see. I think it's certainly possible with the players that they have. Very concerned about their defense, though.
Right.
Against a really big team. All right, so this was interesting. If you look at the power rankings and strength of schedule, by the way, if you put Alabama on this chart, they'd be way up in the right upper quadrant up there. So if you did it just purely on strength of record and strength of schedule, Alabama would have been in the playoff. But it's really interesting if you look at this, the teams that have the lowest strength of record, strength of schedule down the bottom left are Clemson, Arizona State, SMU, and BSU, or Boise State. So all 4 of those teams are sitting there kind of in the lower quadrant. In the middle, you've got Tennessee and IU. And then in the top 6 teams with these 2 components that the selection committee were looking at are all the big guys, Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame, Texas, UGA, and Oregon, largely because who do all of them play in? They play in the top 2 conferences, right?
Right.
So I think that since we're heading into just the first year of the 12-team playoff, next year, the second year, they're really going to need to decide what the college playoff is going to be. Is it going to be trying to get the 12 best teams? Or is it going to be to try to get the 12 most deserving teams? And that's really the debate. And I'm not sure we can decide it today. I'm not sure how they're going to decide it by next year. But
well, last year keeping Florida State out was putting talent level above deserving because they were undefeated. And this year they did a flip flop and they went with teams that deserved it because they beat everyone on their schedule. But nobody believes that Alabama is not a better team than, Arizona State or something.
Right.
So they flip flopped, and I think they might go back and forth every year. They don't have to decide. Some years they might say, I think we're going to put more value on talent.
So are they going to look at this type of thing and make it scientific, or are they going to go with, okay, if you win your conference championship, you're going no matter what, even if you're way down the left of this quadrant? How are we going to do
I think
that?
that's what they'll do. Well, they got to keep emphasizing the conference championships, I think, to me. And I don't know. I don't know if there's a perfect balance, but to me, it's got to be a combination of wins and strength of schedule, right?
Yep.
If you go out and you just play nobody all season, that my biggest point is, like you guys said, who got it wrong, or what was the most wrong about the bracket is Boise State having the first round bye. Like, that's just ridiculous. Like, should they be in? Of course, I want them in. But not a first round bye. And so, I mean, I think to me, like, you throw in maybe a Ohio State or a Texas definitely deserves it better than Boise does. So,
and Alabama, the reason that they're starting to move forward with, we're going to weaken our non-conference schedules, because they're looking at this quadrant and they're seeing these teams that get in with a very low strength of schedule. Yeah. And they're thinking to themselves, hey, if an IU can get in 11-1 by not playing anybody except Ohio State, then maybe we should do that.
But you can't do that in the SEC. Like, you can't
do it.
And the funny thing about, their non-con was weak to begin with this year anyway. I mean, SEC does that, and I get mad when I talk about this, but SEC does that stupid thing in the middle of the season, where they play like literally Alabama played Mercer. Like, I don't know what week it was.
It's ridiculous.
8 or 9, right? 9 or 10. And they actually went up in the standings. You guys, they went up. They played Mercer and they went up. It was what? How does that happen?
That's because people above them were losing. So
I know.
It's real tricky when slots start opening above you. You're going to gently rise, even if you didn't really do anything spectacular.
I know. I hate that, playing a cupcake and like 3/4 the way through your season kind of thing. It's like just.
So then, what about a team? What about a team like Arizona State got there, but what about a team like South Carolina, who lost 3 games early, but I would argue was one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the SEC at the end of the year? I mean, nobody wanted to play South Carolina.
I agree with you.
How do you deal with a team like that who ends up 9-3, but is clearly one of the top 12 teams in the country? Like, what do we do about that?
I think you just got to say, hey, you can't lose 3 games, right? I mean, I hate to say that, but you can't lose 3 games, and if you do lose 3 games, you got to somehow be in your championship, and you got to win it, right?
Like
I mean, like Clemson, exactly. I mean,
I think I'm okay with letting there be outliers that you have to kind of make a call on. It's pretty obvious that Georgia, Texas, Penn State, all those deserve to be there. But then when you start looking at other teams in different quadrants, sometimes you need to apply different tests to it. So strength of schedule is important, but so is winning. Anyone can go lose to Notre Dame and Georgia,
right?
But can you win? Can you beat those teams? That's the hard stuff.
I mean, and winning has to count for something. Right.
Yeah.
Well, that winning is everything, quite frankly. So winning has to count for something. I agree with that, but it's the fashion that you win. It's who you play when you win. I think it has to count for something.
It's going to be so fascinating to see how these big programs, what they do going forward, how they schedule teams, how they manage their conference schedules, how they position themselves so they don't get any more than 2 losses.
Right.
It's going to be really interesting to watch.
If you go and you beat an SEC top team by 1 point, it's more impressive than beating Miami of Ohio by 21.
Way more impressive.
You know what I mean? So how do you quantify that?
Yeah, that's good. All right, boys. Well, we're here. We got the final bracket. This is a graphic actually Luke came up with from Yahoo Sports. This is what the bracket looks like. You can see the various bowl games that we're going to be talking about in the first round. So let's talk about each of these games. Let's start over on the right side there, the hardest bracket. Oregon, the number 1 seed, for some reason drew the hardest bracket. They're going to play the winner of Ohio State, Tennessee. That game being in Columbus, Ohio, so that's a home game for Ohio State. The winner of that game is going to play Oregon in the Rose Bowl, which I think will be absolute bonkers ratings. I can't even imagine how people are going to watch that game. Of course, a lot of people.
You just put your finger on it, probably not even by accident, but that's exactly why that bracket's so hard. They wanted the Rose Bowl to be an incredible matchup.
Right. They didn't want
the
it
only
to be
way to
Boise
guarantee
State,
that was
Oregon.
to load the box.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So then down the bottom, you got Arizona State, who earned their way into the 4 seed out of the Big 12. They're going to play the winner of Texas, Clemson, which I think, by the way, is going to be a really good game. I think Klubnik's playing well, and Texas can't score very many points right now. So not sure who's going to come out of that bracket to play Arizona State. Looking in the left brackets, you got Georgia at the number 2 seed waiting on Notre Dame or Indiana. That game's going to be in South Bend, Indiana. It's going to feel like a home game to both teams. So Georgia will play the winner of them in the Sugar Bowl. And then Boise is sitting waiting on Penn State versus SMU. That game will be in State College, Pennsylvania, home game for Penn State. And the winner of that will play Boise in the Fiesta Bowl. So thoughts about these 4 sub-brackets? Which ones are the toughest? Which ones are the easiest? What are you the most excited about?
I think for my money, easiest, or let's say difficult to easiest. So the Oregon, Ohio State, Tennessee, that's to me is the most difficult bracket. And then I go to the Georgia, Notre Dame, Indiana,
Agreed.
Texas, Clemson, Penn State, Boise, SMU.
I agree with that. Robbie, you agree with that?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. So that's pretty clear. Those are the rankings of the 4 brackets, which again goes to why Penn State loses the Big Ten championship game and gets the easiest bracket.
Yeah. Tom, to your point, it makes no sense. The number 1 and number 2 seed, whatever, have the most difficult pass. Yeah, I think you could say, right? To the finals. So.
Which is why we have to reseed next year.
Yeah.
They got to fix it.
Has there been talk about that? Or is that just something you've been kind of?
There's been a lot of talk about it.
Okay.
I mean, Joel Klatt and Colin Cowherd,
Yeah.
all the guys who have podcasts all talk about it all the time about how this
Yeah,
has to
I
be
hear it
reseeded.
everywhere.
Okay.
I don't know what kind of support it has in the high ups of the NCAA, but I definitely hear a lot of grumbling about it on the podcast.
Now, one cool thing I think that they're trying to do, like the basketball tournament, is they've decided to do the Final Four all in one location. This year it's going to be in Atlanta, Georgia, in the Falcons Stadium. And so that's going to be really cool to see, essentially 3 games played in Atlanta.
Yeah.
That'll be neat to see. All right, so Luke, I'm going to have you go on record, man. We're going to ask you the winners of each of these to get us to the semis. So who do you got for the Ohio State-Tennessee game, and then who do you have winning that next round game in the Rose Bowl?
Right. So I got the Buckeyes. Winning in a low-scoring game against Tennessee. And then I got the Ducks. I got Ohio State beating the Ducks. I know I bagged on the quarterback for about 5 minutes, but I just think the overall talent level is too good. Hard to beat the same team twice. So give me the Buckeyes coming out of that region.
Okay. Interesting.
Yep.
Robbie?
I agree with Ohio State beating Tennessee, but I think Oregon beats Ohio State.
Okay. Very good. So I'm going to completely upend everything you said, Luke. I'm going to pick the Tennessee Volunteers to get the upset.
There we go.
I think they're going to win about 24-21. I think it'll be relatively low scoring with lots of good defense played on both sides. And I think Tennessee may even be losing at halftime, but I think that they find a way to get it done in the 4th quarter and go on to play Oregon. And then I think Oregon takes care of business. So I like Oregon to win that bracket.
Okay.
I think they're clearly the best team in football.
Okay.
So let's go down to the right bracket. We'll start with Rob this time. Who do you like, Clemson or Texas?
I think Texas is the better team, especially with their defense. So they're going to win there, and then they're going to also beat Arizona State. So Texas is going to move on.
Okay. All right. Luke?
Yeah, I don't have much more to add other than I think the Texas Clemson game will be it'll be an entertaining one. I ultimately think Texas wins that, and then I just think that Texas is just too big and bad, and they'll you're never gonna shut Cam Scatterboo down, but they'll probably limit to him to maybe 100 yards or something like that, and make him be a little bit one dimensional and go on from there.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So you have who going to the?
I got the Longhorns advancing.
Okay. So you're going to have Ohio State Longhorns in the semis.
Yep, that's right.
All right. So I like Texas to win this game purely because Clemson's defense is kind of trash.
Yeah.
And I think Texas, although they've been struggling offensively for a long time, I think that Sarkisian's going to have a nice game plan, and I think they'll just end up outscoring Clemson. I think Clemson's going to have a hard time scoring in this game. Texas defense is super good. So I like Texas to advance, and then I like them to beat Arizona State. I don't think Arizona State's in the same class as Texas, although I think they might keep it close for a half.
I think Texas's defense is one of the only ones that could handle Scatterboo.
Probably so.
Right. I think it's a bad. I would have liked to have seen Arizona State against maybe against the Penn State or Notre, anybody other than Tennessee or Texas, quite frankly, because I think those two defenses are obviously Georgia.
And let me just say that
Georgia.
Yeah.
Let me just say, if Clemson does somehow pull off a 1-point upset against Texas in this game, I think Arizona State will beat Clemson. I think they will run all over Clemson. They may have 300 yards rushing.
Right.
So, but yeah, Texas is a bad matchup for Arizona State. Agree with that. All right, Luke, why don't you go on record about the Notre Dame Indiana game?
Yeah. So again, I'm really looking forward to this game. I think Rourke's a winner. Just don't think that they're deep enough, and I'm probably one of the few believers in Notre Dame. And out of a lot of people here, I think that they're a tough team. Riley Leonard's a good quarterback. They're stacked on defense. They're ball hawkers. So give me the Fighting Irish in this game.
Okay.
Then they play Georgia. I'm going with the upset here, if you'll call that. I think Notre Dame beats Georgia. I just don't trust Beck to do what he does. He's a little bit injury prone, I think, too. And I think Notre Dame gets to the Final Four out of that bracket.
By the way, that Sugar Bowl is going to be very highly rated too. Notre Dame, Georgia, and the Sugar Bowl. Wow.
Right.
That'd be a really good one. All right, Robbie.
I think Notre Dame beats Indiana, and then Georgia beats Notre Dame.
Okay. All right. I'm going the same path as Luke on this one. I like Notre Dame to beat Indiana, and I like them to beat Georgia. I think Beck is hobbling and is going to try to give it a go. I think by about the end of the first quarter, he'll be out of there, and they'll end up playing with a backup most of the game. I don't think Georgia can score enough points to hang with Notre Dame, who's going to run all over them. And I also think Notre Dame will end up with about 2 or 3 interceptions or turnovers because they're kind of turnover machines.
Yeah, they are turnover machines.
So I think they will win by about a touchdown. I like it to be a good kind of 34-27 type game. Notre Dame gets to the semifinals. All right, last bracket. We got SMU, Penn State.
I think Penn State's going to get it done with the tight end play. Aller's going to have a few nice plays that really keeps some drives alive. Defense is strong. They're going to be tough for SMU. So Penn State moves forward, and then Penn State beats Boise.
Okay.
Do you think that's a close game?
Yes, because I think they'll keep it low scoring by long time of possession.
Okay. I don't have much more to offer. I think Penn State has the easiest road to the Final Four here. I think SMU's been really fun to watch. I think at the end of the day, they don't have the studs and the physicality to hang with Penn State. And then obviously, kind of same story there with Boise. I think Penn State's got to walk to the Final Four there.
Okay. I completely agree. As a matter of fact, I don't think either one of these games is going to be particularly close. I think both of them may be close at half, but I think Penn State wears them out. with their Big Ten style of ball.
I agree with you, and I'm going on record. If this if that Boise State line is under 10, I might put a fairly sizable bet on that sucker.
There you go, and you don't sports bet.
Yeah, and I don't sports bet. Right.
Gentry's had 9 in the box all year long, and he's getting 75-yard touchdowns.
Yeah, no, I think he'll have a good
care.
game. I think he'll have a good game, but I think they'll still get blown out.
Yeah,
at least 2 touchdowns.
Anybody? I mean, look, okay, they played Oregon. I get it. That's I know they lost by 3, but since that they haven't played anybody like Penn State.
True.
Yeah.
I think Penn State wins. You asked, do I think it's gonna be close? I do. I think they have the formula to keep it close against a team that has better players on it.
Sure.
All right, so Luke has Notre Dame, Penn State, Ohio State, and Texas.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and finish it out. Who do you think are going to win those 2 semis, and then who's going to win the final?
Yeah, so I got Notre Dame beating Penn State, and I got Ohio State beating Texas. I think all those games are really close, really competitive. And then I got Ohio State, the Buckeyes winning it all. So I think, you know, I just think their overall team is just too talented to be held down. They've already played Oregon really, really close. I think, again, it's hard to beat. Like, to me, out of this whole deal, that's going to be Ohio State's toughest game. If they get past Oregon, they're winning the championship, hands down. So I think, to me, that's going to make or break my bracket here. So give me the Buckeyes as the national champions.
Okay. Very cool. I like that call.
Yeah.
All right, Robbie.
So I got Oregon going against Texas. I think Oregon wins that one. And then on the other side, I have Georgia going against Penn State. I think Georgia wins that one. So I think it's Oregon, Georgia in the finals. And I think Oregon wins it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That'd be a fun game.
That'd be a fun game.
Yeah.
One versus 2. 1 versus 2.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So you have Oregon as the champion. Okay, I'm going to go. I have Notre Dame, Penn State. I'm going to go Notre Dame, win that game and go to the final. And then I have Oregon against Texas, and I like Oregon to go to the final. So my final is Oregon, Notre Dame, and I think Oregon is clearly the better team. So I also have Oregon winning the championship.
Okay.
Yep.
So we got so we got 2 Ducks and 1 Buckeye, right? All of us are coming out of that top right bracket. So it's going to be interesting.
But I do think I'm agreeing with Luke on one thing. I think the Rose Bowl is kind of a whole shooting match. I really do. I think whoever comes out of that game has a really good shot at winning the whole thing. I think that's going to be the game of the playoffs.
I think Sugar Bowl also is going to decide who's going to go up against Oregon.
And just remember, in the Rose Bowl,
Ohio State is capable of beating Oregon.
Just remember, in the Rose Bowl, I've got Tennessee playing Oregon.
That's right. Yep.
So
let me ask you guys this: what double-digit seed has the best chance to get to the Final Four?
That's a good question.
Even though Boise's on the other side and probably not as good as Arizona State. Does that make sense?
I'd say SMU, because I think that little part of the bracket's the weakest.
Yeah, maybe SMU.
Only because of weakness, not because I think they're better.
You know what? Actually, let me take that back. Clemson can't beat Arizona State because of the running game. Scadabo's going to go all over them. So,
and I would say, Penn State's probably worse than Texas, right? So SMU has has easier matchups in both rounds.
I think if Indiana was sitting where SMU is right now, I'd say Indiana.
I would love. And Indiana and Penn State didn't play each other right this year, so that would have been,
incredible game. Incredible.
Yeah.
All right, Luke, give us your final thoughts, man, as we wrap up the college season and we head into bowl season, head into the playoffs. You've already told your wife you're not going to see her for a while.
Yeah. Look, I just think it's really cool that the college football playoff committee or whatever they are, like, went out and did this 12-team deal. I think, like, we've been wanting this, and to me, this is so much more fun than a 4-team playoff, right? if we had the 14 playoff, it guarantee we wouldn't have Boise, we wouldn't have Arizona State, right? It'd be the same old Joes and Smos that we usually have. So I'm super pumped for this. I'm super pumped for the bowl game. I'm super pumped bowl games, I should say. Iowa State against Miami. I'm really curious to see how we do against Cam Ward if he actually does play. He says he's going to play. I can't believe he's going to play, but I just think like, hey, bowl season's here. I know there's a game going. I think Memphis and West Virginia are playing right now, so it's here, and I just definitely thanks to you guys too for having me on. This is like, I think sitting here and talking sports for 2 hours is just, I could be here all night, quite frankly.
Luke, we call you on the podcast now. You're a friend of the podcast, and we call you Mr. Football, man.
I'll take it. I'll take it. Hey, I watch so much college football and I watch more college football and college basketball than I do definitely pro basketball, but even NFL. So I enjoy the college games a lot more. So
I used to like the NFL better, but the last probably 3-4 years, I now like college football a lot better. And I think this by far was the best season ever. And we have a theory here at Sports Guyz why that is. It's 3 reasons. It's the 12-team playoff has completely changed everything. Everyone has a chance now.
Yeah,
that's number 1. Number 2 is the transfer portal.
Right.
You now have the guy who's sitting second or third on the depth chart at Georgia, who's not going to sit and wait till his senior year to play. So he's going to go to Boise State. He's going to go to Iowa State. He's going to go to somewhere else he can play. And it's just spread the talent level out across college football so much more. There's so much more parity. So that's number 2. And then the third, of course, is NIL. You have programs able to bring in guys who may not have gone to that school otherwise, but will come in for a big bag. And, it's become a professional sport now.
It is. It's 100% a professional sport. They even go get players like NFL, right? As far as
free agents.
Free agents. Go get your quarterback. Okay, bag secured. Go get your bookend DN. Okay, bag secured.
Yep.
Go get maybe a running or a wide receiver. Running backs, maybe not as much unless you get like a Genty or Quinshon Judkins kind of guy, right?
Yep.
But like, it's literally, it's like the NFL in so many ways now, but it's way less predictable. And that's what I love about it is these games the season's been a little chaotic. And I mean, I honestly feel like a lot of NFL games, you can kind of say like, okay, they're just going to happen this way. Not necessarily with college football. So that's what I love about it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Robbie, any final thoughts, man?
Well, a couple of things I really love this year that are worth mentioning. I love the conference realignment results. I think it really helped football with better matchups. Throughout the year, we weren't seeing Alabama rolling over nobodies all the way until they played Auburn. They had to play, Georgia, and just there were really, really good matchups every week, all season long. Not just rivalry week, but like it was a really good season. So that was huge. Second is the 12-team playoff, significantly better than anything else we've seen in college football. So exciting. We're arguing about who's in 13th and 14th, should they have been in and all that. It's just so much better for storylines and more drama, and setting up really, really good matchups. And a couple of things that aren't great this year. The portal opening before bowl week is a disaster.
Total disaster.
And the way they did the 12-team with automatic seeds for conference champions was not good. So there's some stuff to improve. Just imagine how much better it's going to be when they kind of tighten those things up. Next year is going to be just as spectacular, but there's probably at least a third or half the teams are different. So,
and not only is the portal window needing to be pushed back, but you need to also have some anti-tampering rules. I mean, you can't have Bill Belichick reaching out to Arch Manning before he even plays in his playoff game. That just can't happen.
Right. No. So what I heard is happening. What I've heard is happening is Bill Belichick's not calling Arch Manning. Bill Belichick's secretary is calling Arch Manning's agent,
right,
and somebody in his family to start a dialogue behind the scenes. That's what's happening. Is there's tampering, but they're doing it in a careful way so that there's not direct link between the player and the coach that's trying to get them in there. There have to be some rules about free agency. There have to be rules about transferring. There have to be rules about NIL and pay for play.
There's got to be some regulations next year. There's a couple areas they really need to tighten up. It's a little too loose right now.
I heard from a source, I guess I'll call it, but like literally agents are calling the collective or like the collective person for the university and saying, hey, my running back, what would you give my running back? Like literally open shopping their clients saying, hey, and they're just saying, okay, hey, here's your list. Oregon will give you 700,000. Tennessee will give you 500,000. Boise will give you 125,000. Right? And like, it's crazy. I mean, look at the basketball world. The guy is signed for BYU for $7 million. $7 million.
What about Underwood, who just switched his commitment to University of Michigan to go play quarterback there? He just switched it right at the last minute because they gave him an $8 million guaranteed bag. $8 million.
It's crazy
for a kid who's 18 years old.
Yeah, good.
Never played a game yet.
Hopefully, some of these guys have some good financial advisors behind them or something too, because that money doesn't last forever. That's the accountant coming out in me for sure. But
by the way, Luke is available. Everybody, Luke.
Yeah, that's right. Hit me up, LukeNelsonCFO.com. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. I was going to ask you to do a plug anyway.
There we go.
And I'll put it down below again.
No,
Luke.
it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. So, Luke, want to thank you so much for joining tonight, and everybody. Please drop us a comment on whether you want us to have Luke back when we get to the Final Four. I think you do. And so hopefully, Luke, you'll agree to come join us when we get down to the Final Four and talk about those consequential games that are coming up.
Yeah, guys, first of all, thanks for having me on. I can't wait to see how right or how wrong we were. And 100%, I'll be on anytime you guys want me to. But yeah, I'd love to get back on when we get to the Final Four. By the way,
when we get to that point, I'm playing clips from this show.
So do it. So you'll see how right I was.
It's so funny when we're doing an episode and Iowa State comes on, Tom announces it as Luke's Iowa State.
I hear it. I
do it every time.
I hear it. Yeah.
Luke's Iowa State. Luke's team lost. Like you own the place.
Yeah, I do.
Great. It's so fun.
Right, well, guys, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and look forward to when Luke comes on next time for Final Four. You guys have a great evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. See you next time.
Thanks, Luke. Take care, everybody.
See you guys.